Good evening, everyone, for the study session of March 12th, 2024. Donna, you do a roll call, please.
Yes, I will. Councilmember Blush,
Here.
Councilmember Sherman. Here. Councilmember Gutierrez,
Here.
Mayor Nesco,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schmidt,
Here, sorry.
Councilmember Stearns, Councilmember Gilmore.
Thank you, Donna.
Welcome.
Tonight, we have a present or studies agenda with Public Works Director Jay Harris has information for us about emergency preparedness. I was trying to get it out. It's been a long day. All right.
Good evening, Mayor Nisco, Deputy Mayor Schmidt, sorry, been a long day. Council, Public Works Director. I got Brent Armstrong here. Brent is our wastewater and stormwater superintendent, and he's also been helping out in engineering for the last year since we haven't had an engineer. So Brent's really stepped in and helped out quite a bit. So tonight's subject is emergency preparedness. I'm just going to go over some of the basics with folks here. And so the overall reaching goal of the city is to get, and the county, is to get people ready for a natural disaster. And you'll see in a minute all the different various ones that can happen here. And start planning for that. You can never plan completely, right? That there'll always be issues. Do you have power? Have the roads been completely destroyed, like the Fairbanks earthquake back in the late '60s, where you couldn't drive anything? Do we have water? You know, those sorts of things. Are all the bridges out on 101 and all the other roads coming in? Are we isolated? Do we have just the water to barge stuff in, or the airport, right? And so every situation, whether it's a fire, an earthquake, or huge windstorm or ice storm, will present the emergency management group with different situations and opportunities. Then the last thing I can say, if you don't have people here, you can't respond to the emergency. So that's really the most important thing as a city, that we have a good culture. The people nearby are reporting as soon as they can get here. But people like me, I live, over an hour away. Most likely, I'm not going to be at the emergency here. I'm probably reporting to my nearest city, that sort of thing. So, as we develop culture, we get other people reporting that maybe aren't in our emergency group, but they're just as well qualified, and they're substituting, over time. So basics. So preparation saves lives. There's no doubt about that. It can also reduce fears for people, right? Remember that the city can only do so much. We have a limited number of staff members here, right? And if it's a super large event, people need to have housing and they need to have clothing. They need to get food eventually, right? We need to try to open roads, give them that gallon of water a day, right? Very important. You can live a long time without food, but you do need warmth and shelter and water to cook with and that sort of thing. So that's really what we're going to do. Our website's going to be upgraded over time. I'll show you the schedule things at the very last slide, and try to get information out to people that they need to prepare in their house with things. We all do, right? So, and then it can also make us easier to recover. People are ready for it, and then they can show up here, right? Like I said earlier, if you're not ready for the event and I go home and I'm trying to cook and get sanitation and keep my family alive, I'm not here to help in the recovery right away, right? And so the more prepared you are, the more you can come volunteer and do things and help a city recover in an event. So are you ready for the disaster? So we just need to know what affects your house, where you work, or your school, maybe where your kids are. How do you receive alerts and warnings? That's one of the things we're going to be talking about. There's a system called Code Red. County's using it, from what I understand. It's likely in the next year or two, we're going to sign up with Code Red text messages if your cell phone works, right? And then how do you communicate with your family and friends if systems are disrupted? And they will be disrupted depending on the level of event, right? That your cell phones are correct, basically. Most people don't have landlines anymore, so you're just sort of stuck, right? Well, you need to communicate with people, that's pretty primary, or they're trying to get a hold of you. Quick thing, I'm down in San Francisco, 1989, go through the 89 earthquake during the World Series game and all that, right? Nothing worked, no power, no gas stations, we're out of gas, stuck in the house, still have water dribbling out of the house, which is nice. And I hear something over in the corner, and it was the phone sort of ringing, and it was my wife's dad from Portland calling to see if we were all right. And I said, yes, we're okay, Ron. And he goes, oh, that was the end of the call. That's all we got. I got that message through to him. And it was, 10 seconds, right? It made him feel better, obviously. A couple days later, the phones came online and all that. So at home, NOAA weather radio, you can tune into local news. Wildfire readiness in Western Washington, with DNR, you can sign up with that. And it gives you a whole bunch of information. And I'll show you in a minute why knowing more about wildfires is really important. You can receive alerts on your smartphone if it works, if you have a way to charge it, right? It's only gonna work for a day or two. And then tune into your local news for emergency information. So the communications plan is important, right? I got a call over there in the corner, didn't even know it was really ringing, it was sort of vibrating. But faraway people close in, right? So write down phone numbers and email addresses, because that device you're using, you might be using some neighbor's device, your device doesn't work, you can't even get a phone number out of it maybe, right? And so they advise you to just keep sort of an analog version of a few contacts, right? Pick an out of area contact also, that's important. You contact that person, and then my wife's family and my family knows to call that person. They're sort of the broker of information, right? Everybody's okay, they're over here, everything's, you got enough thinking about, you don't need to keep telling everyone you're okay, I'm helping over there doing all that. This other person out of area or out of state contact is reliable, and because they weren't in the incident normally, right? And then share contact information with your friends and family, and then keep the information written in your wallet or purse, just a few numbers. Like I know a lot of the mobile numbers for my kids and whatever, but do they know mine, right? So, because you just hit the button on the phone, it's in your contact, you really know that phone number, right? And then plan and practice together. So that emergency meeting place is really important, right? So if you can't contact each other at all, you should have that one spot that you're hiking to, or you're all meeting there, and you might wait 2 weeks for Jay to walk in, right? But eventually, I know I'm gonna be in Oakville at our farm. That's our spot. That's where out of area people, anybody knows, that's where we're all gonna migrate to and sort of camp out there. So I have that spot, especially if you have children and they might be in school. You walk over and you get them there because they're too young to, a lot of times, run off on their own, and then you go back to that spot that everybody's picked, right? So 2 weeks of emergency supplies. So access to supermarkets, that's out. So the earthquake I went through, they were all boarded up, but guess what happened? The looters broke all the windows and stole everything. There was nothing left. Everyone was all freaked out because everyone thought that the 6.9 earthquake I went through, that the 7.8 was coming next, right? And that this was just the first tremor of many, that San Francisco was breaking off the map and going into the ocean. I think it was nauseous, where people go and extend themselves to. So 2 weeks, and then until help arrives. The good news here is if bridges are out and all that, we do have an airport. Sanderson Field will be open. It is one of the main drop sites. We should be better off than other communities that don't have an airport. And then talk about the supplies, know where they're kept, even use them a little bit, replace them. Freeze-dried food is huge, you guys. It's pretty cheap. The Mountain House at Costco, buy some of that. Doesn't taste that bad. You need to boil some water normally, so you need a little camp soap and some other things. If you can't boil the water for emergency for the Mountain House food, just dump cold water in it, give it an hour or two. You can still eat it, right? So you'll get it all figured out. So a gallon of water a day per person for 2 weeks, or have a way to make water right at your house. And so they have filters, that sort of thing. You also can sanitize it with iodine or chlorine. All that's on the website of how much you put in per gallon. 2 weeks, so essential water, food, long shelf life. First aid kit, flashlights, fire extinguisher, water filter is important. Your personal hygiene stuff, emergency toilet, that toilet paper is important, right? Tools to turn off utilities, know how to turn off your gas meter on your house. Know how to go out and turn off your water at your house too, right? It's really important. A battery powered radio, make sure you have your personal items, you know, that's prescription meds, stuff for your infants, stuff like that. And so, like your infant food, you want to have a little extra in a can laying over there, just keep rotating a fresh can through, right? So warm clothes, games, because so we went, I think it was 3 or 4 days without power in San Francisco, and after a couple hours, you don't need to do, right? Except sit there, we couldn't drive away, didn't have any gas, so we played a lot of games. So work, school, a day of emergency supplies, so just schools, and we'll need to work with them on if they're housing people there at school. We need to check with the schools to see if they have any seismically capable areas. A lot of their gymnasiums have been built to a higher level. And then they have plans that parents come get some. There's some kids that are still hanging there, right? That it's just the parents work in Olympia, they're not around. The schools need to make sure they have beds, cots, water, you know, and the kid probably should have in the health office some medicine, that sort of thing, a change of clothes in their backpack. So your vehicle's important. So I have it's called a go bag. It's in my car right now, or a grab bag. And I looked through it the other day and I put some stuff in it that rotted. It wasn't a very good idea. And it made some stuff moldy in there. So I got it all out, cleaned it out, and made a list of what I was missing in there. It's just that I hadn't looked in there in 3 years, just figured everything. I had gloves in there for snow and whatever, socks and all that. But look at your bag and identify what your needs are. You can walk around your house and fill up your go bag. In 20 minutes, you have almost everything you need. Everybody has multiple items, right, at your home. So that usually isn't a problem. Water in the winter freezes in your car, right? That's a problem, but I have a way to sanitize water in your car. That could just be a life straw in your go bag, right? So, you know, the things that you need for winter are important. You could be going over the hill, right? Get stuck, big blizzard. You're gonna be in your car for 8 or 10 hours, maybe, right? Or the better one is where Google navigates you onto a backcountry road that should be closed. You've heard of those stories before. These people burn the tires trying to stay alive up there. So how to purify water. So, anyways, you need it, so the faucet water might be working, but it's likely we have a boil water notice in effect that our system's been compromised. A lot of times I'll be able to keep you pressurized water, but there could be an instance where you have broken pipes and you get bacteria in the system. So, you know, you don't want to trust the water right away until we say it's okay, but you can boil it and then you can add a bleach solution to it. So you want to stay hydrated, obviously, you don't want to get dehydrated. And you need to make sure the water isn't contaminated, limit your physical activity, and pay attention to other people, you know, the older people, the children, you know, that they're not drinking water, you know, you need to make sure you're keeping people hydrated. Stay away from alcohol, sugary drinks, caffeine, and don't eat salty foods if possible. And then if the water has oil or something in it and chemicals, you're gonna be able to smell it or see it. You don't treat that type of water, you gotta go find some better water somewhere else and treat it. So sanitation is important, it's just a bucket system, right? You put garbage bags in a bucket, and then you have some shredded bark, paper, leaves, anything to like cover each one, then you obviously tie it up and move it out, right? And then liquid waste, you have a P bucket also. Urine is sterile, typically doesn't make people sick, right? But it's fecal waste and poop will make people sick. You definitely need to keep that away. It's center area. So home preparedness, and then most injuries occur in the homes. Kitchen fires are one of the big ones. I never do that. But then stuff can fall over on you too. Go around your house. That bookshelf is really tall. It's a little wobbly. You should probably tie it, you know, the upper part of it back to the wall, that sort of thing. Make your house a little safer. So go through and do that home safety check. And then like my ceiling fan in my house, I was watching it bounce. I was renting the house and watching it bounce. And the person that put it in just used Molly screws up into the drywall up there. The big fan, right? And it's running on high all the time, and not a good idea. That fan should have been mounted to some wood up there, right? So it just would have pulled out and fell on us in an earthquake. So look for things like that. Look for trees around your house. You know, that could be the fire hazard. We'll talk about that in a minute. So hot water heater needs to be strapped to the wall, right? And then the gas appliance needs flexible connections. And then you need your shut off points for your gas meter, water meter. How to turn your breaker box off too. So the pet emergency kit's important. They need food and water also, right? And a crate's a good idea, so you can put them away. They're gonna be scared, obviously. You need to put their waste in a bag also. And anyways, have enough food on hand. You don't want to run out of food. So know the hazards where you live. So here in Mason County, we're prone to earthquake, fires, floods, temperature extremes, winter storms, and can cause widespread damage. And then we just need that each hazard has different things you're gonna need. So extreme temperature, that can be hot or cold, right? For long periods of time. We are tending to get a little more hot, right, over time. The cold stuff, I don't know what year it was, but the Columbia River froze over one year in the early 40s or late 30s. It got really cold here for a long period of time, right? They had to ship stuff into Hood River and stuff. The train couldn't even go. And I don't know how they got it there. I think they tried to barge it in with ice riggers or something, whatever. But we don't have, the cold snaps seem to be getting less and less. But heat's important, right? Keeping hydrated, watching people get into heat stroke. I was working hard, it was 100 degrees on our farm, and my father-in-law was sitting there watching me work, and he goes, "When was the last time you had a drink of water?" And I said, "I don't know, a couple hours ago." He goes, "Sit down and have some water." That's all you gotta say. If it's hot out, you should be drinking water every 15-20 minutes. You know, taking a good gulp of water, right? So smoke, bad air quality. So we've seen that. It seems like the Canadian smoke seems to be filtering in more and more every year. Growing up, I don't remember a lot of smoke, but it just seems we're getting a lot more wildfire smoke from other areas. So windstorms, you know, we tend to get a little more wind here, it seems like, than other areas. And it just seems because of the Olympics and the location and all that. But anyways, the power line to your house is important. My dad, just this last winter in Portland, in the West Hills, it took out all the trees in his front yard. It was a huge gust, and it hit his line, and he was out of power for about 3 or 4 days and camping in his house. Anyways, secure loose gutters, shutters, find a good place that you can hunker down in, right? I don't think we're gonna see many tornadoes here, right? Where you don't need to have that type of room. But you should have a safer room in a large windstorm event, that if a tree did fall on your house, that, you know, you're gonna survive that incident. So keep your emergency kit up to date, and then you don't want a bunch of things to blow away or fly through the window. And then stay indoors during a windstorm, go to the lower floors. And then wait till after the winds have calmed down to avoid hazards. And then don't touch any down power lines, you guys, ever. even if you think it's a cable line, it is a Comcast cable line. It looks like a Comcast cable, and it is. But a quarter of a mile down the street, it's getting backfed from an electric line. You touch that and you're dead, right? You're not the expert, right? You've got to just get away from all those and keep people away. If there's lines on a car, those people need to stay in that car and not touch anything and wait till the providers come there and the power company, and they can check to make sure it's all shut off to get the people out of the car. Because it was recent that people tried to save a family in a car. Everybody in the family died and everybody tried to rescue them died. Well, one I think might have lived. But you know, you can get shot to death and your heart stops, right? So you don't want that. So flood damage, we are a little flood prone here. So we have up above the library, you have the diversion dam in up there. Prior to that dam going into the 70s, Shelton Creek used to wham all the way through here. And I need to find some pictures of that before the diversion structure went in, because it sends a lot of water. It shuts it down 7th and puts it into Goldsboro Creek. Brent, would you say during a big storm, half, 3/4 of the water gets shunted? Yeah. And the creek always looks the same, right? It's because there's a big bypass up there that sends the big water straight and away. But before that project, a lot of this area flooded up here. Downtown, you folks have probably seen that. Tides are high, big rainstorm. We get quite a bit of flooding down here. Goldsboro Creek tops, and there's a large floodplain, 100-year floodplain down there also. So wildfires are number one danger. Now, we just got done with the county hazard mitigation plan. Council adopted it, what, 5 months ago, something like that. And anyways, that was the number one thing. Well, a year ago when they were working on it, that came up. I was like, there's no way. I mean, I would see a windstorm or a snowstorm or ice or the earthquake, right? And it ends up the wildfire here just because of the wind pattern and the type of vegetation and, you know, how houses are clustered and all that is our number one danger. So this slide here, basically you want to have a perimeter around you and your house and your neighbors, just to keep the fire from burning all the way through, right? So the new building code is adopting more resilient roofs. And I don't know when, is that in effect also today or is that on Friday? It's gonna be Friday. Okay, anyways, that will be important. I don't know what, they're still using asphalt shingles, but they put a fire retardant on them now. So, you know, stuff, burning embers can get up there and it isn't gonna catch the house on fire in a second, right? You gotta be quiet. Yeah. And we're a pretty high risk area, even though there isn't a lot of trees. Once structures start to burn, you saw that in Maui, right? Where the structures started burning, it just runs through all the structures. So the Cascadia Zone earthquake is sort of the big scary one. Off coast, 250 miles. It's supposed to be a 9.0 earthquake, it's supposed to shake about 8.0 here. The earthquake I went through was 6.9, the Leona Prieta down in San Francisco Bay Area. So if it shakes 8 here and I went through about a 7, it's gonna be 10 times stronger than what I went through because it's on a logarithmic scale. So I can guarantee you that when that hits, when you shake at 8.0 here, it's for real. You're gonna remember that day the rest of your life, right? You won't be able to walk. You're probably gonna be crawling around and trying to get under something. The other thing is it's supposed to shake for anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes. I went through 29 seconds, I think, right? I remember every second of it, but I couldn't imagine it shaking that long. So it's a big deal. So tsunamis can happen too. We're not a coastal community, even though we're on a bay. A tidal wave isn't going to make it all the way in here. They've done a lot of modeling on that. What happens is the wave does come in, you know, to the sound, but every corner and curve and bank dissipates the wave energy. By the time it makes it all the way around, and you might get
Is this building seismically retrofit?
From point of view,
911 is in.
constructed, 911 is,
All you want.
well, 911's seismically retrofitted from the time of construction. by Kirk.
Oh,
So
That was new construction,
okay.
right? That was added
Oh,
on
that's-
to this building,
Oh, okay.
and it meets different standards based on its use. What that was 25 years ago and how that
Yeah, 1999.
has,
No standards from that.
So you haven't seen my budget yet, but so we're gonna have an engineer look at the whole building and tell us how to fix it seismically, what the cost is gonna be for that. And then there's great grants to go out. For the city of Newburgh, I went and we took this building in Newburgh. I think it was a $2.5 million grant, and they went in and this building, since it's a newer building. It shouldn't be that bad. It's not like you have to rip it all apart, right? And so, but this building should be seismically capable. And then we need to know, is the high school gym seismically capable? Where are these shelter centers, right? There is the hospital. Anyways, that's one of our program elements is to start checking out the community. So the hospital, us, the county emergency management center. It better be seismically capable up there. I would assume it is, but you gotta ask that question, right? So.
I gotta say, I've got several earthquakes in my history, and I'm a run out the front door kind of guy. I don't want to die in a building covered with lead, but. I was in the Whittier quake in California in 87, and it was 7.1. We were 12 miles from the epicenter. We were in Rosemead. And my apartment, the big walkway outside your apartments up that people get to their apartments upstairs, that actually fell down outside my door. Kept my feet on glass, head bleeding, and And the whole apartment building slept outside for 5 days, went back inside and we had a 5.5 aftershock. So, and then my wife at the time said that that's enough, we're going back to Washington. We came back to Washington and we had the earthquake here. She was in Fred Meyer and all the tiles were falling off the ceiling. Yeah,
6.2?
there was a, I don't think, I don't,
7,
no, I don't think it was that big, was it?
6.8.
Was it?
Yeah, I was in this building.
They made it, right?
February.
Yeah.
That was the size of the jar.
They're not fun.
Never before in human history, so many people on so much about a risk so large that we've never experienced together. But I've experienced it right alongside my wife, which is why this idea is so personal and important to me. I'm going to tell our story at the very end. To begin, I want to tell you a new story of the Pacific Northwest. The story of the Pacific Northwest begins 3,000 miles away. To be exact, 3,000 miles beneath your feet. Because up from that spot in the core, there's a massive column of magma, which is rising to 2 massive plates out of the sea. And those 2 plates are spreading in opposite directions, but their journey is the same. Right now, the Juan de Fuca plate is sliding right underneath your feet in the exact same way that the Pacific plate is sliding beneath Japan. Now, the story doesn't end there because that plate, as it dives, the friction and the depth causes it to melt. It becomes a pool of magma, it rises to the surface and creates landscape. This process created Mount Fuji. This process created Mount Hood. This process created Mount Rainier. And unsurprisingly, this process created Mount St. Helens. This process is called subduction. And subduction is about a lot more than beautiful landscape and occasional volcanic eruptions. It's also about risk. See, right now you're standing on North America, and North America actually goes all the way out to the ocean, where it is locked with the Juan de Fuca plate. Now, the Juan de Fuca plate is pushing and pushing so much that the edge of North America is bowing, like a ruler being pushed at both ends. And eventually it collapses, and it starts a domino effect, where all the weak spots along that fault line begin to give way. And in the worst case scenario, we have a 9-point earthquake that shatters the infrastructure of the Pacific Northwest. And if that's not enough, trust me, it is. Bam! It also displaces trillions of gallons of water, which comes towards us and goes all the way across the ocean to Japan. And we actually have Japan to thank for the absurdly precise chronicle of our last 9-point earthquake at this precise hour.
I never thought it's huge.
Oh, please.
Like I see that Jelani,
Yeah.
it's good the Andrews and that.
That is just one of the 43 earthquakes that we've experienced in the Pacific Northwest. And what worries me is not only that we're not ready. What worries me is that we haven't actually decided to get ready. And I think you're not ready for 2 reasons. I think reason number 1 is you think you don't know what to do. And I find that deliciously ironic because you just learned in the last 10 years that the act of subduction, which we see here, can cause destruction like this. That's new information to you. But your true culture is founded in the lasting gem of subduction, which is those mountains. These mountains are the reason you stay in Oregon. These mountains are the reason you moved here from the Midwest. And these mountains are part of our cultural warehouse in the form of camping. So let's take a baby step, y'all. Camping is when you willingly go to a remote place for an extended period of time without any services. We've always known how to go camping. We just don't feel ready for camping to come to us. Right? So listen, being earthquake ready means being ready to spontaneously camp in any of the places you find yourself, home, work, car. It also means having a hell of a lot more water than you would ever have on hand in Kansas. And it means being ready to find your family when the bridges are down and the phones are out. Let me ask you all something. I'd like a good show of hands here. How many of you feel that anyone in the Pacific Northwest should probably be ready for this earthquake? Can I see hands? I'm gonna ask a second question. How many of you expect people to get ready for this earthquake? Oh crap, that makes no sense. That you just displayed to yourself is what I call the common sense gap. When as a culture, you know what the smart thing is, but you don't expect each other to do it. That's the common sense gap, and we've been here before. We used to smoke on airplanes. Right? Okay, so how do we bridge the common sense gap? We bridge the common sense gap by building what is called a permission structure. And here's how a permission structure works, okay? We're going to a potluck, okay? And everybody brought pasta salad because that's all that we ever bring to potlucks, okay? And so it's all out there, the food's ready, we're all there to eat, and everybody's waiting politely for the first person to finally step forward and start eating. And then what does everyone do? They start to eat with that person because that person created a permission structure. And then suddenly the poor guy over here who's not eating, we're all pressuring him. Why aren't you eating? Did you not get the memo? We are now people who eat. Join us. That is how a permission structure works. So what you're gonna do after you leave today, you're gonna prepare just a little. Build a little kit, build a little bit of water, start putting together that family plan, and then you're gonna do something kind of interesting. You're actually going to share that information with your loved ones, with your circle. And you don't expect the next thing to happen, but this is what happens after you start sharing this information. All the closet preppers start to come out. No, listen, y'all are preparing in secret because you think you're gonna get made fun of, which is a weird cultural phenomenon. But as you repeat that exercise of building permission structures over and over and over, what happens is you have begun to normalize preparedness. And the moment it becomes normalized, it becomes expected. As soon as we expect this of each other, we have something new. We have a new culture. Culture is simple. Culture is basically each of us doing our very best to meet each other's expectations. That is the path to getting ready for this nearly unimaginable earthquake. And I want to end by giving you an idea of why this is so important to me. In 2004, my wife and I were living in Sri Lanka. We were on hand for a tsunami that was created by the third largest subduction zone earthquake in history. And we worked together for 1 year on the relief effort, and then came back home to Klamath Falls, Oregon. And what really frightened me about coming back to Oregon it wasn't about learning about our subduction zone, it was the worry of this question. Can a culture that has never experienced an event this big change in anticipation of the event rather than after it when it's too late? And then I learned a little story that gave me a little bit of hope, because very close to the epicenter, there's a tribe in the Andaman Islands that shared something in common with us. You see, this tribe had never in living memory experienced an earthquake tsunami event. And in this event, which took 250,000 lives in one day, they suffered 0 casualties. Reason they suffered 0 casualties is because they established a permission structure generations ago after a forgotten tsunami. Generation by generation, conversation by conversation, at the moment that they needed it, they knew to go to high ground. Never have so many people understood so much about an earthquake as ours. But knowledge is not wisdom until it changes you. So, Portland, Oregon, world, all of us are living in different variations of common sense now. Never underestimate the will of common sense to reveal itself. It's just waiting for you. Thank you.
So I apologize for the little videos of the way there, anyways, and the commercials. Next time I'll try to download that or something, but I got just couple more things here. I'm gonna go back and share my screen. Busy, okay? Okay. So next, emergency management, we're gonna get the city employees familiar with the instant command system. There's courses 100, 200, 700, 800, 300, 400, or the 6 different courses for core people to be in an emergency operations center. Public Works is doing right along. Brent, do you remember, like, a lot of Public Works has 100, 200, 700, 800. We're collecting the 300, 400. But this is gonna go citywide, and we're going to probably bring in a trainer most likely and take a day and have the rest of the people get it. What happens is if you can't show to FEMA that you have a bunch of people with certificates and there's a big event, sometimes you don't get reimbursed if you show you have to put the effort out, right? So it's important because we want to get reimbursed in a large event, you know, for our staff time, our materials, that sort of thing. So developing our emergency operations center, likely it's here. If this is damaged, we're up the county's EOC, right? And it all depends on the event. Like in a wildfire event that's over there, we might be up at the county EOC and not here. So like a snow event, the emergency operations center comes out of Pine Street, the maintenance yard shop, right? So it sort of varies from event to event, but for city staff and the civic center is gonna be our main EOC. It's nice you have a 911 center right there. You have the police department right here, but this building needs to be available for that, right? And then we're gonna be working on our website to give a bunch of emergency preparedness resources. You saw a bunch of those checklists and stuff on the slides. That's all gonna be available on the city's website for people to start using. Emergency communications planning, we've already started on that. We have Verizon currently, we're talking to AT&T FirstNet. They have a separate network that the federal government pays them to operate that is not a commercial network. It's just for governments, firefighters, that sort of thing. There's no throttling of data. 24 hours, if their towers go down, they got 4 in this area. They will have a tower at this site, they helicopter them in, or however they get them here, they get them here. So, it's a good plan. We're looking at the cost of that plan compared to our current plan. So we got that going on right now. And then, Public Works, is working on emergency water supply. And then, we're gonna get a water supply trailer. The goal is to have 3 different water sources in the community where we filter and disinfect water, and you can fill your jugs up in the community to where it's about a mile walk maximum for anybody in the city. This is like the worst of the worst when it's really bad, right? But we need to be ready for that sort of thing.
Where's the contamination come from? Is it in the ground or is it in the tanks?
Yeah, so what's gonna happen to our water system, we only have 1 reservoir that's seismically reinforced right now, that's Upper Mountain View up by the county shops. It's likely all of our storage is gonna be out, we're not gonna have any reservoir storage. We have a lot of cast iron pipe that doesn't fare well in an earthquake also, and so, any sort of earthquake disaster, it's likely our water system is gonna be down. Each well or each aquifer, when it shakes, they react differently. If there's a lot of sand, you can sand the whole pump in, right? You're out for weeks, you know, if that's the case. So the goal is depending on the type of event, is to be able to get that gallon of water a day to people. And for the first few days, you know, that person running that station is not gonna be probably very busy. But if it goes for any length of time, you know, we'll need this. So we're planning, so this is one of those assets that you buy and hopefully you never use,
It
right?
could be groundwater infiltration, broken pipes, there's sewer lines and water lines very closely aligned together with a lot of our right of ways, so they can break at the same time. You just open yourself up. With those cast iron lines, a lot of contamination, if you can even transport water.
But
right?
if the
You
tank,
don't
if the
just
tank
break-
survives, the water inside the tank's still good. I mean,
That's correct, that's correct. The water in the tank would still be good. So that was an exercise I went through that. Tank was draining, there's a bunch of leaks downtown. You get some of the fires out, but not all of them. What do? And the fire official said, go shut off the tank. And everyone's going, well, you're not gonna get the fires put out. And he goes, let the town burn. We've already got all the people out of the buildings. I want that water to drink next week. So he already had the right answer, right? That is the type of decisions, though, emergency operations centers are making, right? Very difficult decisions that affect the whole community, right?
Who makes that call? Who can tell us to turn off our water reservoirs? Because right
That
now,
could be the
right now,
emergency.
the city code is the fire chief.
It's,
Exactly, and that's on our list that I think, yes.
yep.
Yeah, absolutely, right, yeah.
So currently, we need food and food and water for our people, for our first responders. So right now, we have about a week worth of freeze-dried food for city employees. Stored in 2 different locations in case the building collapsed. We have some at the wastewater plant. Is it at your place still? Okay, and then at the Pine Street building over there in the pump building, we have the second half. We have water, we have, I can't see it there, it's a bin, and it says emergency management only. Well, there's flippers in there, there's plates in there, there's can openers in there, there's all sorts of things. So, the freeze-dried food, the shelf life on it is 25 years. We bought it bulk, government rates from Mountain House. And we did that a couple of years ago. We need 1 more pallet of food, and we should be set up just to keep the first responders fed. We're out there working harder. You burn more calories, right? And so everybody gets 3 high-calorie meals a day, and that sort of thing. So then we're working on the functional, that's on the bottom right there. What position does what? And our city manager, he's at the top of the structure. And then I think I'm all the way down at the bottom. I'm just kidding. I'm one of those intermediate guys in there, but there's groups, you know, there's finance, they gotta pay the bills and do that sort of thing. there's logistics, there's the planning section. And so there's all these sorts of different sections within the Emergency Operations Center. The goal is to have an exercise, sort of open up the EOC. Have people make sure they know what their functions are, go through a couple paperwork exercises, close it. Make people fail a little bit. That's, that's part of these exercises. And then they'll just increase in complexity over time. And then that paperwork of each exercise, you have the after action report, you submit that to FEMA. Once you start sending that in, they know you're for real, right? If you actually get more resources and more people looking at it, because they know, you know what you're doing here, you're following what they're saying, you're posting exercises, they read the exercises. I even got a few phone calls from a few of them saying, good job. And so you turn yourself into the model of Western Washington, right? It takes 3 years to get there though. It's a large amount of work in front of us. I did this for about 7 years at Newburgh and really moved it along to where we felt we were getting pretty good. We changed like our public works standards for water lines to try all the new water lines going in, joint restrain them and make them so when they break at intersections and that sort of thing, that the water services don't pull off at the main line, they pull off over their meter. That's more of a weaker point. And that way we can bring water in sections of the city's water system back online at a time. But seismic reservoirs, we're gonna need that, better piping, that sort of thing, more redundancy in our wells, maybe well locations also. So that's sort of it, but we have a large program in front of us and we're doing this. This isn't our main function. It's very important, but we all have full-time jobs plus some, right? And so we're all coming in and picking up a piece of this. And so I have a group of staff members that everyone's spending 2 to 4 hours a month right now working on different emergency management subjects rather than just one person trying to get it all. So we have a big group of us and that group will keep expanding over time. So city manager.
I think one thing that some of you have seen in person, others approved the project is the wellhead pressurization project and tying in the spring house. Because that is essentially a groundwater source that's available to us. It's untreated, but it's something that can be used in emergency. You don't need a pump, you don't need a well down the ground, right? So that's one of the first phases of this implementation of this emergency management plan. It's being put to practice now.
Yeah, we have over a mile of pipe that's thermally fused with no joints on it, and really no connections either. So we'll have a very relevant supply. But when you get down to where it goes, the high school tank, it is right there. It's an old tank that's not seismically retrofitted and probably isn't worth the cost at this point for that small little tank. But we're going to be looking into our water system. There's that reservoir option study that's nearing completion. That's a component of when do you replace a reservoir? When do they go offline? There's a certain date for these steel reservoirs. So we'll be talking about that more in the coming months. Brent, anything?
Any questions?
I noticed that you didn't have any matches or lighters in a waterproof bag or something in your packet there. That was what I want to add in there. This would be a great presentation. This would be great for a Spotlight Shelton, or what are we calling it now? Is it Spotlight Shelton? I think so. I can't remember. This had a couple names, but for a community.
Yeah, I think we've got some work to do, as Director Harris mentioned, so we certainly want to refine this, provide as much information as we can. And it's a lot of information too, and there will be a lot more information that comes out and meter this out and how we can best communicate with our public, but public forums, city's website, outreach at community events, partnerships with other jurisdictions, so that has been mentioned, especially emergency management. It's county is really important.
So,
Couple things.
partnership with the city on the east side too, that they have resources. And we get to be very friendly with another city, about our size, that way valves, pipe, people, whatever, we can transfer them either way, right?
Well, actually, a lot of things, but 20 years ago, I was the Red Cross Disaster Coordinator for the East Bay area with AmeriCorps. And we did community mapping and we knew where every kitchen was that could serve as a kitchen location. So, you know, if we could fire up the big pancake thing from the Kiwanis if we wanted to feed a bunch of people. And we had agreements with the local groceries so they wouldn't get overrun, that we would feed people at their parking lot and we could use what's in the grocery that's still fresh and available and, you know, save the present stuff for last and eat all the other stuff first. But it was all, we all knew who to talk to if there were a disaster. And then we all had contacts and we all said, oh, yeah, well, the Methodist Church has a fruit garden. Maybe they have some fruit today, or, you know, but everyone locally knew what resources there were available because we community asset mapped and said, this is a place where we can draw from if there were an emergency. So I'd like to see something like that in place or some work on that. It's like, oh yeah, we can use the Veterans Hall to feed people, or we can use we can do a Fred Meyer or a Walmart center parking lot feed, and then we can at the same time protect the contents of the store, you know, and then use that for the public good and not just looters, right? So, and then also another thing was we told everyone to stay home and shelter in place. If you're a good camper, camp at home, you know, and don't utilize services unless you're, you know, washed out. You know, and this was right after the Indonesian earthquake and right after Hurricane Katrina, about the OOs. So everyone had that ethic that like, okay, during an emergency, we're gonna not be that person who's, you know, burning down the resources, but that person that is prepared, staying at home and only going out when they needed to. And then, you know, when you're at home, you can also barter and I have batteries, let's trade batteries. I have some MREs that might be a little expired, but here you go, you know, they don't expire, right? Anyway, anyway, that's something that I'd like to see is the community know the asset maps and know where to go. It's like, you know, every school has a cafeteria, right? So that's a safe place that people could trust to go to. Let's go to the school, you know, and if the school has a school resource officer, then we can protect the school. So I'm just saying like, those are we need to have a community mindset and not like, I need to get mine, you know? So that's hopefully that we come out emergency prepared for our mindset to be, we need to pitch in the community and not get ours. Right. And like, a lot of us are, you know, well armed and like, well, I'm going to get mine, you know, it's like, well, hold off on that. We don't need that yet, you know? So just like to bring that out there. I'd like to have some sort of community contact or the city manager or whoever that could coordinate all the local nonprofits and charities that are willing to identify them to be locations if there were a huge emergency. And then we can have pre-existing agreements like, hey, he's got a food truck, we can reimburse him. Like we'll already have a pre-FEMA list of who gets reimbursed, you know? So those are just some items that I think that we should be prepared for if and when this does happen. And it's larger than, you know, longer than 3 days. And we're all like freaking out because we don't have Facebook, you know? So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there that I think we should involve the community and not be dependent on FEMA coming and saving us, because they might not, you know?
It takes them a long time.
So,
too.
And education and being prepared is going to make the availability of emergency responders much more efficient, right? We don't want to impact our first responders and our public works crews and folks like that. If we can, you know, have to. So educating individuals, making them feel like they have the ability to get some of the resources they need, or done that work ahead of time. So I can address the most critical situations first.
and if you are a closet prepper, you know, be prepared of thinking of sharing your goods instead of like hoarding them for yourself. So those are my couple things that I wanted to get off my chest. Thank you.
Helpful to circulate the comprehensive emergency management plan. It'll have shelter locations. I know the county's been keeping that up to date. John Taylor's working on that stuff. So you can circulate that to us. That'd be great. Because we adopt that, correct? The city doesn't have its own.
Correct.
We adopt the
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. 2.86 just needs to be updated in city code. It's nowhere near accurate. I mean, it talks about basically the mayor appointing the director who would be responsible for the emergency management of any incident, which then the director is defined as the fire chief. We don't have a fire chief. So yeah, we need to change that. And then especially in light of COVID and everything else, I would really like to talk about emergency powers, what that means. We don't have anything defined in our city code about really emergency powers and what that allows us to do or not do. State of Washington dealt with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be good for us to.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of good examples out there, so we'll get some code rewrites done, get that up to date.
The last little note is just prioritization of what do you fix first? I mean, that's way into it, but when you do have the larger scale emergency, what are our priorities process for, do we get water online first, then sewer, then roads, then whatever, you know what I mean? So I don't know what you can't just go all in different directions. We gotta stop and kind of your point with, we're gonna shut off the water. I want the city to have a lot of say in that and not necessarily, a fire chief or a police chief. Otherwise, things.
I've heard of towns that have had, like wildfire spread, and then they complain that FEMA didn't help them. So this, us having this done, will ensure that that doesn't happen, right?
FEMA will come help, yes, if you
Right.
show that you have a
Right.
good, robust emergency management program. You're gonna find their assistance is much greater.
So what I'm guessing is that they didn't do this, those other cities that have had those catastrophes,
It's likely they just weren't prepared and a lot happened to them. And, if you were more prepared, maybe less would have happened to you.
You mentioned it, they're not gonna show up right away.
Right,
And
just like-
they're not being all be all.
No,
You-
not.
You need to take care of yourself first. Right.
Local first.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, and if it's, Cascadia and it's a broad event like that, particularly the resources. So we need to use resources first. That's what Councilmember Schiff was just
Right.
alluding to, who's making those decisions.
And that's the thing, we share staff between different utilities, right? So
Yeah.
water, sewer.
Yeah.
So they're all gonna have to work together, streets, right?
Absolutely
they're all-
right.
And, looking at other national level, global issues, a lot of those people don't come back to work.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that,
Yeah.
they're gonna lose their house too, like I am. And I don't expect people to come to work, right, when that stuff's going on, so. Incident management teams are a big deal, and there's a lot of effort into that, so I encourage you guys to participate in that regionally, if we can. Because again, like we said at the beginning, I think. We may have people from other cities, counties, states that are coming in to support Shelton's, Western Washington's recovery. So whatever we build needs to be compatible with whatever the whole rest of the United States is doing, not some custom product that we're doing in Mason. So. That's what gets you funding too, it's being really consistent. So modeling after counties, and cities that have succeeded in recovery. Especially the recovery and mitigation work, like being prepared, cutting the trees, cutting the fire breaks back around our utilities, that kind of stuff. There should be hazard mitigation money for that work. Not to pay for that out of our pocket. And then I'll just add too, we don't budget for disasters, right? Right, so
Yeah,
if we have one.
Strategic reserve.
Yeah.
This would fall.
And having to replace a roadway network. It's gone. Okay. Yeah,
In general,
big deal.
general fund strategic reserve is about 20%.
Get you much. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you, Jake.
Welcome.
Right, do we have a city have a sat phone? Sitting on a shelf somewhere, we should get one of those.
Don't.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
funny story on that, the last place I worked, they had 2 sat phones. And I said, well, where are they? He went there and I don't know, it was up there on that shelf, whatever. It ended up, people didn't use them and they weren't charged. And so, we do need to get calls out of the area, though, there's no doubt, and, so we're gonna be looking into communications is big. We're lucky, we have our own radio system here that we have, in trucks, and we have handhelds, and, we're discovering more about our own radio system. All the people that knew a lot about it no longer work here anymore. It's an older system, but we are able to communicate with each other when everything's down, not connected to the 911 or police network. So we're looking at the potential of reviving that system, replacing it over time, probably going digital with it, that sort of thing. And anyways, but talking is really important. So quick story, windstorm, Newburgh, Oregon, AT&T went down. And it's before they had their FirstNet system. And anyways, Verizon still worked. Well, the whole city was on AT&T. All the city lights were out, all the city phones were down. And so it happened, the windstorm happened at like 10 in the morning, so we all our work. And so we all go outside and are gathering outside the building, and guess what? Notepads, hey, go check that generator and whatever, and then meet me back here at, right? It went to just, we still drive cars, there's limbs down and stuff and whatever and trees. But anyways, you get down to just paper system, you know, back a long time ago, you know, you had horses and the mail and paper, right? So that, and hopefully we don't get down to that, right? So learned a lot on that one though.
One last thing, we do have a local radio station. That should be part of the emergency plan, and everyone should have an AM, FM, you know, portable radio, and, you know, here's Jeff Slakey with our, what do you do today? You know, the location centers are open up at here, and here, you know, and,
Money,
Yeah.
generate.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it can stay at.
And then everyone has a car, well, not everyone, but a lot of people have cars, and you can tune in your AM, FM maybe, and that can be your source of information as well. So think about, you know, start thinking about that if things come to subduction zone.
So we got this whole program is cooking, right? It's not going at light speed, but there's just incremental steps. And so anyways, more to come, you know, we'll get an update to you folks, probably what, 6 months or something. I'll come back and give you a report of where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This is important that you guys know.
Right, anything else? Any items for new discussion? Oh, this means adjourned at 7:07 PM. Thank you, Jay.
I don't know how I can help it. I love this.
Okay, so